Where's the Hecklers Club of Africa? They are just inactive. No, Zukizwa has gone. So this is the problem. Let me hear. That's it. That's right. Please test your mics, guys.
Balangu.
Microphone testing.
Yaji.
Testing.
Zobo.
Yaji, 1, 2. Yaji, 1, 2.
To our little panel. Our three panelists are outstanding journalists, all of them having, done stellar work over the course of their careers. To be honest, I'm quite proud of all of them. They bring a good name to the profession. And incidentally, they're all investigative journalists. We all know the dangers that come with that territory. Now, I'll start, unlike Lola, with Rona being the lady. Rona Meyer has been an investigative journalist for well over a decade, in a career that's seen her, grow as a reporter, an editor, a trainer across the world. She's currently, the face of the only Emmy has won many awards for his journalism work. Seriously, his CV is, it's a wow, I will start with Rona.
But why?
I'm afraid of Zara.
Okay.
You started out at Next newspaper.
Yes.
Yeah, which we all know Next. Really good newspaper. It's sad that it's gone now, but in its heydays, you were a really solid part of the team. And the newspaper has had more than its fair share of drama when it had to report then President Erado's, worsening health. To say the polity back then was, tense is an understatement. So the story came out in Next to some outrage, but mostly acclaim, right?
Yeah.
Because that was the first time Nigerians were really sort of shown the situation around that time that the president was actually ailing and no one was really informed. Now, as a professional, how would you approach breaking a news story in a situation where national security or even your personal security, would be under threat?
I think one of the best questions you can ask yourself when you are approaching a story is, so people like to think objective reporting is just about being, if I ask you what is objective reporting, you would say, oh, it's reporting without bias. But if you go to the word, an objective is what? A goal. It's intent. So the first thing you need to do when you're working on a story that might have potential national security or security issues for both you and your audience is to ask yourself, what is my objective? What do I want to achieve? Do I really want to inform people and give them their right to be informed? Or do I just want to stir the pot and probably be viral for a week, probably get noticed and get an appointment later? I mean, your dreams are valid, as Lupita said. But you've got to ask yourself, what is my objective? So the minute anything would come into the newsroom, both in Next and, I think Next is where I actually started getting some sense of militancy with my reporting. I mean, you had people like Dele Olojede, you had people like Kadiri Ahmed, and we started with ourselves. So there was little old me calling Africa's first Pulitzer winner, Dele, good morning, Dele. I mean, you won't understand the sense of power I got. So who is a bad criminal that I cannot overcome if I can be on a first name basis with Africa's first Pulitzer winner? So it was that culture, and we would always ask ourselves, in reporting, for instance, Yaradua's death, what are we trying to achieve? Are we trying to just be the first to read it? Or are we doing it because Nigerians have questions? This is the president, and we have to now cross the line between his personal health and the right to knowledge of the public. And so my thing is this: whatever is going to secure our women, our children, our society must come first. That is my own objective. That is my own bias. I will first of all think, whether I'm alive or not doesn't matter. Do I want to live in a society where people don't have access to knowledge? People don't know what's going on and how drugs or how insecurity is about to start? No, because what type of life will we then live in? So for me, the safety of the nation comes first before mine. I've found out in my own type of investigative work. And everybody then has to have that conversation. Anybody wanting to take on such subjects, either as journalists or even writers, you have to decide, am I going to let the communal come first, or am I going to just, look after myself and censor myself?
Thank you very much, Rona. And then as for you, Abdulaziz, let's touch on your area a bit. Your investigative journalism has achieved a rarity in Nigeria. That is, a sitting minister actually resigning as a result of a scandal, which you broke. I'm sure we want to hear how you came upon the information, and maybe if you had any personal battle with making it public, or, your thought process around that time before the story broke, how you went about getting it, maybe the response from the public, how your peers, everything. Basically, I just want to, if you can tell us in as few words as possible how everything felt at that time. And then, do you think exposés of seismic proportions like yours, of course, have an impact on security? And of course, I mean national or even personal.
This is a very loaded question. First, I think the story, which is to answer your first question, is something that we worked for a long time and under very intense secrecy, which later blew because our request to the NYC was leaked to the minister, who now set on motion to see how, as usual with Nigeria, to kill the story. And of course, Premium Times, I am so honored to say, is not a place where you can kill a story. So that was her bad luck, I would say. But in general, issue of a story like this is something that, to pick some of the things Runa has said, that the first to the issue of national interest. Your work as a journalist, first and foremost, is to safeguard national interests and keep people in positions of power on their toes and keep them accountable to the people, which is, if you take it further, the first and the most fundamental principle of our democracy in itself. So, going back to the story briefly, I actually, literally took it off the hands of a colleague, actually my boss, who shared the initial idea with me, and I said, no, sir, I want to do this part of the story. And as I said in another forum before this one, people tend to forget a fundamental foundation for this story, which was the National Assembly and the finance ministers posing, which we found out, that was the basis, that was the foundation, that there was this curious relationship between the finance minister and the National Assembly, in which the minister was funding them illegally. National Assembly is on first line charge, but here was the Ministry of Finance giving them 10 billion naira financing their so-called projects that without even approval from the presidency. And then we discovered that 10 billion, there was no actually project done. It was just money that was given a dash, so, kind of, that was now covered up with some invoices and all that. But so that was the trigger for the story. That's what I always tell, like, colleagues, especially younger reporters, that as a journalist, you have to be curious. Curiosity is very important, and it is in that inquisitiveness that you uncover a lot of things. So now, by this scandal itself, as I said, it took many months, and it also took very discreet investigation, which was leaked, and then there are many attempts to see how either myself or the publisher, or the editor-in-chief, to how to compromise those things.
But in threats or maybe?
Well, I always try to be fair to the woman that personally I didn't face any threat. And apart from, attempts at compromise, I wouldn't want to claim what didn't happen. There was no security threat. But there are a lot of concern from family members and all that, and friends that you should go down, you should go underground. These people can be very deadly and all that. But I, to a large extent, disregarded all those things because I felt there was no need. But also to answer the second leg of your question, I want to give a short story here. Around 2009, at the heat of the censorship regime in Kano, which I think the audience here will be familiar with, I was reporting that copiously for leadership newspapers then. And along the line, one day, we got one scandalous story involving the head of the censorship board, who was caught, in some compromising situation. And I now called him to say, sir, this is the story we have, and we want to have your own side of it before we go to press. And the man was now saying, oh, but why would you want to do this? To what point is this story? To what end are you doing this? And this will, at the end, will only bring Islam to ridicule. So the point here is people always, especially those in positions of authority power, would want to use either national interests, maybe this man who wanted to use religious interests and all that, to cover up their tracks that they will say, oh, this is not in the interest of national security or this and that. And there is something very interesting. I hope, even if there is any reporter here, is very much off the record, of a confrontation between a senior person in my organization and a senior government official about the Adeosun story, who was now saying, I talked to a why would you go and do this kind of thing? This is embarrassing the government, it's embarrassing the country. This is so, and they actually almost had a fist cop in the man's office because, of course, and that's also the beauty, to digress a bit, of being above board as a journalist. Because as the Hausa people would say, if the mouth takes something, the eyes will be constrained. There wouldn't be courage. But he had no apologies to them. So whatever you are doing, people like that could always try to show you why you shouldn't do that in so interest.
Let me just quickly ask you. So, did you think, with the involvement of the National Assembly, right, and all that, did you think there was going to be like a domino effect and we're going to cause maybe a national security issue? Did you put that into consideration and you were just like, nah, I'm still going to do it? I need to stick to my own principles and those of journalism. Was there any time when you had maybe that?
No, not really, because as I said at the beginning, our obligations is to the people, is to the national interests and national security there. There are areas, there are implications sometimes of national security. I was telling my friend Samuel Arwan yesterday about a reporting I did, which I later became remorseful about, which when explained to me, I felt it's really borders on national security. There was a security safe house, which through some reporting I was following, I outed crying up. And then somebody high up called, sat me down, and he said, do you know what you just did? This. And when he explained those things, I really felt we could have avoided, releasing some of those details. So there are issues of national security, like, for example, the controversial, maybe if I'll turn the mic against the moderator, the story you did on, the altercation between Daily Trust and the military.
It was not an altercation. We were the victims.
But, okay. So what I mean by altercation is not that you are not victims, but, the misunderstanding, so let me put it that way. It's actually, there are things sometimes that maybe revealing them, for example, in premium times, a lot of times we get stories that sometimes we have to water down or withhold certain parts of it, because in as much as it's factual, it could also be very dangerous, you understand, or traumatic. For example, a lot of times you could see us writing Army Colonel killed in Boko Haram ambush or stuff like that. It's not because we don't have the identity of the person, but because we are also thinking of his family and all that. So it's better that the process of communicating it to the family.
But Abdulaziz, that's a form of, sort of being respectful of national interest as well.
Yeah.
That's
what
a
I'm
more
saying.
and more honorable way, as opposed to the other one that is twisted by people in power.
Yeah, that's what I'm actually saying, for clarifying that. That's what I'm saying, that there are moments of national security interest that I think even as a responsible citizen, you would have that sense of self-censorship to avoid. But a lot of times, to reiterate my point, a lot of things like national interest or implications of stories that sometimes people mouth is actually not true. It's just because they just want to cover their backside. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abdulaziz. Fisayo, it's your turn, basically. So, you've done a number of excellent reports. I've read and enjoyed some of them. Your op-eds too are quite incisive. Was there ever a situation where you found your objectivity, at odds with national security? And if that's a yes, how did you resolve it?
Okay, thank you very much. Before I answer your question, let me first say thank you to LS and everyone else at Kaba Fest for this opportunity to be here. It's my second time in Kaduna. First time, it was Boko Haram that brought me. So it's...
Literally?
Well, I'll explain that later. So it's good to be here for another reason. I'll answer your question in two parts, but I want to make a strange request. I want to answer the first part off the record. I don't know if it's possible for the cameras.
Yes, this is a safe thing, will be edited.
I think there's a live
sure
recording on.
Is
There's
it
a
live?
recording,
stream?
live streaming.
Yes, there's a live
okay.
stream.
Because I know Lai Mohammed spoke with journalists and said off the record.
Where is LS?
So this is
And-
the thing
and
about
Oak
this
TV
type of
messed him
panel.
up, so-
When it's live,
Could
there are some things that
could
might
we
be said.
pause on that a bit till we get confirmation of the live feed being paused? Then you can say that part. Is that fine?
Okay, it's gun, AAG. It's clear, AAG directed at the aircraft. But there were Boko Haram members who shot these at soldiers. And there were soldiers in that vicinity. Just the sound of that gun, they lost their hearing aid. And they were there at the hospital. Of course, we published that. So now I'm getting to the second side. Published the fact that a lot of soldiers injured while fighting Boko Haram had not been taken care of. Published how, before we did, of course, so that's it's a 5-part investigative series I titled Forgotten Soldiers. It's available online. At some point, we had to call the army spokesman because there were lots of scary discoveries. So, and he tried to explain why the story shouldn't be out. Oh, no, Fisayo, you come to Abuja and any information you need, you can actually talk to the army rather than publish. And in the end, we went ahead. So there are times when we know that there is conflict between security, national interests, and we hold back as long as it doesn't kill the story, it doesn't change the objective of the story, it's fine. And if I can add, you know, sometimes when people ask for objectivity, I say, you guys don't even know what you're asking for. Because from time to time, the army would say, oh, if you ever call what we will find, you won't like it. You know, so a lot of times, objectivity is not a question of the journalist being biased. It may just be the journalist not having access to required information. And sometimes I don't blame journalists. So, like Sierra Leone Civil War between 1999 and 2001, in 2000, there was a carrying soldiers and foreign journalists, 4 of them, caught shock, the most popular of them, 4 of them, 2 died on the spot, caught shock of Reuters, and 1 other guy for either AFP or AP. The 2 guys who got injured, Reuters sent an air ambulance to pick them up. Please, who's going to do that for a Nigerian soldier in Borno? For a Nigerian journalist? Nobody. So it's hard if we want to achieve objectivity in security reporting, a lot of responsibilities. You know, we can get there, but glad for people to know that it's not like journalists don't care, you know, about national security. We do, and we always try to strike the balance.
So to provide a kind of like bookend to what, you know, they've all said, he's saying a lot of truths I'm directly familiar with, like interacting with security spokespersons. It is probably the most difficult part of that aspect of the job. Now, we all know the language they use, the tricks they employ, the frankly unprofessional and limited lexicon they, you know, have access to. Everything, it just doesn't help the work of a journalist at all. So, you know, you find yourself at getting a correct story, properly done story, and battling these spokespersons, you know, who are not really doing their job the way they're supposed to be.
Can I quickly add something?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so I forgot to say, I'm an avid preacher of audience sophistication. A lot of times, journalists publish stories and the public attack us. Oh, the army has released a statement that is not true. The police, they've said it's not true. Anytime the army releases a statement, they say 2 soldiers killed, multiply by 4, 5, 6. That's the real figure. And I don't believe statements of the army and the police, and I don't hide it. You know, I don't hide it because of that experience.
Focus for clickbait. And yes, this is like now a snake eating its young, a journalist going for journalists, but you know, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to say what I'm everybody that is Fisayo has been saying. So it's called hostile gatekeeping, this engaging reporting. It's by Abdullah Tassu. And he said, attracting media attention is a component of the strategic communications campaign of BH. All their actions are partly carried out for the attention they will create. When we prioritize those actions, give it center stage, we are actually doing their job for them. Our objectivity is now supposed to be debatable. And with what Fisayo is saying, can you report a story without talking about how gory it was? Can you hear about something BH has done without actually attaching the video? Because that's why they're making the videos. Why else do you think terrorists all over the world will take the time to get internet access and put phones up? It's because they are looking for airtime. It's a little bit like Wizkid and Co. when they dance. You know, they do the split, they hire Kafi and the dancers, you know, in shorts to really attract your attention. So where we are the gatekeepers, I seriously think we need to start having that conversation about whether we're becoming tools rather than a cog in the wheel of those causing national insecurity.
I totally agree with you. Yeah. And some of it could also be, I don't want to use the word blamed, but, you know, really ratty, you know. So that's to say a good word. So some of it can be, you know, blamed on that, but there's still a few, in quotes now, reputable organizations that still fall, you know, in that category. So yeah, we'll just switch back again to something else here that's related. Do you have a playbook? This is for all of you, and you'll answer one after the other before we take questions from the audience. Do you have a playbook, you know, so to speak, for navigating security issues and at the same time maintaining your objectivity while reporting? How do you do that? Basically, I'm sure it varies from person to person. How do you do that? We'll start with Rona again.
Oh, me again. So my playbook starts with, what am I trying to achieve? The first thing I'm going to do is weigh which security comes first. Can I report this safely without putting people in trouble? So like what my colleagues have been saying, there's something called jigsaw identification, where you publish some facts and people can easily put two and two together and know the place or the person you're talking about. So first of all, I look at the areas where I can enter into jigsaw identification. So do I need to change the name of the place? Can I report the story without mentioning the place? Can I get away with just saying women instead of saying Hafsat or something? Can I get away with saying the number of people killed without really going into the gory details that might really put off people? Then it varies depending on the medium. For instance, we know that with video, if for instance you show the beheading, we know it's going to traumatize people. It's going to cause hysteria. It's going to make people feel insecure. So for me, it's, am I bringing a feeling of insecurity as well as am I enabling actual insecurity? Because both are almost the same. Making people feel insecure is just as bad as releasing information that actually brings insecurity. Okay, so for me, I always check, how is it going to, what can I do with that? And then I start thinking of myself, okay, where should I be? What should I do? So one of the things that helps me is people will not know it's me when I tend to blend. So usually people expect journalists to look a certain way. I make sure I don't look that way. If that I make sure I'm the opposite of what they expect the journalists to look like. In fact, I've been in places where I came an hour earlier to where I was supposed to be doing interviews, and I was observing my subjects, and they didn't know what they didn't know until I was like, yeah, hello, it's me. So they already have this idea. Oh, if it's going to be a woman, she should be this way. If it's a journalist that I heard that is a foreigner, she should be this way. You can bet I'm going to go there and say, bro, Safana, what's going on? How you do? You won't know. So I think people should be able to be amenable to the environment. You have to adapt. Even shooting Swiss with codeine, my best interviews were the ones where I sat subjects were in the same pile of vomit that an addict had just vomited. That was where so you have to secure your source as well. That's part of my playbook. Make them feel safe enough to talk to you. Observe them, so that when you do start investigating and start interviewing, you get a seamless story.
Thank you very much, Rona. Abdulaziz, you're up.
Yeah, thank you very much. I align myself with what Rona has said, but want to add or emphasize about the issue of confidentiality, because it is very, very important. It is what earns a journalist trust, and that trust is what keeps you as a journalist. If you don't have trust of your sources, then you can't like stay long in this work. So in as much as, and that's where a lot of issues regarding especially security reporting, you get between this one, not like physical between maybe what Shoimbo has said, Pisayo has said regarding the security spokesperson and journalist. They will want to expect, they will want you to behave in a particular way, but that cannot work. Someone has told me a story of how he has battled literally with Nigerian security forces because of their expectations that he should give them information regarding some of his sources, which you cannot do as a journalist, not only because of, not because you sympathize with them, but because of many other issues. Your own safety too, in that circumstances comes in. I remember also who once told me that he was offered to go and see Shekau, and but they told him the only caveat, that this should be around 2013 or so, but the caveat then was, if should anything happen afterwards, he's the one to be blamed. So he just forgo it because, you know.
Would you have accepted it?
What I would have, well, I will waive since it doesn't come. But but in all this also, let me go back to the foundation of what I said from the beginning of this conversation, that we are out there to uphold the public good. And in a lot of times, public good does not really conform to what people in power, want. Like, for example, denials. Journalism as it is practiced today is literally an exercise in verification. We are here to puncture lies, to show what is actually the true position of things. Maybe lately, a story was the attack, abduction in the Kasina village, where about 49 people were abducted, and the police issued a statement the next day to say, only about 15 were abducted and 10 were rescued immediately, so it's only like 5 that, but which was not true. And we had videos and evidences from people, eyewitnesses, who said, no, this was not what happened. And up till maybe about 3 days ago, the villagers are mobilizing money, taken to the kidnappers, and the kidnappers releasing the victims in piecemeal. So if you have a relative, you take 500,000, 1 million, and then they release 2 people, 3 people. You understand? So in that kind of situation, you have to, rise up to, because it doesn't help the public. Because, like, for example, the many things.
Sorry,
just a point.
I know I'm not cutting you off.
Yeah.
I'm just reminding you we're running out of time. So maybe if you can get to what you would do about that situation, so we can.
Which situation?
The situation you just painted now.
Yeah, the situation. Just as I'm saying, I would we have to go. But the serious problem happening along Kaduna Abuja road, that today the police would issue a statement say the road is safe. and then tomorrow there is abduction. If we as journalists, and things is not inducing fear, it's also making people conscious of the dangers of maybe flying that road or going to Wurma village in Katsina, which, the abduction happened. If, for example, that thing was not reported properly, maybe somebody will leave, maybe who is working in Lagos, but from a nearby village, he could just leave Lagos and go there, and then the next day he's abducted, and his life is now, in danger. So a lot of times there is this very tricky, even hazy line between what is really in the interest of national security and what is actually even helping the national security. Thank you.
Thanks, Abdulaziz. Just to buttress what you said, the police once denied an incident that I was involved in, so go figure. Fisayo?
Yeah, thank you. 4 or 5 things that I do, I'll try to be brief about them. First is that I try to be as objective as possible. And this is personal. Objectivity is personal to me. I often like to liken objectivity to beauty. It's in the eyes of the beholder. One man is going to say you're objective, the next man is going to say you're not. Quick example, 2015, just before the election, there were a few stories I published at the cable, and people came to my Facebook inbox, say, look, you're not, you just hate Jonathan. Why do you just hate Jonathan? Buhari won the election, and a few weeks, people were coming to my inbox against, why are you just against Buhari? You're never allowing this man to settle down. And I thought, if you were against Jonathan, you should be Buhari, or not. You shouldn't so much be on the side. So people will always say you're not objective. Who is asking if you're objective or not? That's important to me. But personally, I try to satisfy my conscience. Is giving me a story. I want to know what the person's interest is in that. I'll give you an example. 2020, I went to undercover, and they were talking about. I cover even camp officials, food that good people, man's inhumanity to man. And I was saying some negative things about the head of probably was angry. So I don't just take one person's account for it. I dig as deep as possible. And the person who is supposed to be the devil, I come back to him, say, Mr. Devil, what do you have to say? So in a way, I lessen anger. The bad guys are never going to be happy with you, but I try to lessen the anger. Now, common foible with journalists is that we think we are the smart. I tell my colleagues, we are just lucky to be the custodians of the pen. A lot of smart people, way smarter people than us are in the audience. So give them all the facts. Don't think they won't be able to decide, who the bad guys are. So I try to be as objective as possible. That's 1. 2, I try not to show the faces of the people who are not central to the story. Another example, last year I drove the equivalent of a stolen vehicle from Abuja to Lagos and from Lagos back to Abuja. I bribed my way all through. I passed through 86 checkpoints. The journey lasted more than 1,600 kilometers. 42,000 naira was what it cost me to and fro. And I didn't expose most of the guys, the ones who took 1,000, 2,000, 5. Why? I don't just want one sanctimonious police officer somewhere to say, I sacked these 3 guys. They are the bad eggs. The focus is on the institution of policing, not the 3 or 4 guys that I caught taking bribes. One I did expose, though, was the policeman at the Iwo Road. And if you know Iwo Road very well, central to policing the highway from the southwest to Abuja and Co. That roundabout is very central. You have to pass there. And there was this soldier policeman who was telling me, look, I know this vehicle, you stole it. You can't convince me that you didn't steal this vehicle. You don't have any no license, no single document. And he wanted 80,000 naira. We negotiated to 20,000 to collect 20,000 in Ibadan. I'm driving to Abuja. How do you want me to? If everyone collects 20,000 naira, I'm going to sleep at Okene or something. And he said, look, I'll teach you how to bypass other roadblocks. Yes.
Wow. And
this policeman told me, see, when other policemen catch you, tell them that I'm not attacked you on the way. They stole the file, they stole everything, including your bag that has the file. And I thought, no, this guy is really terrible I had to bring out his face. So unless there is someone who is central to the ill going, I try not to show. 3, There is no investigation I do without profiling solutions. I have seen, because one of the beauties of investigative and undercover reporting is that you see things that people don't see. Plateau is I call Plateau my adopted state. There are villages in Plateau that I've been to. I have Plateau friends who have.
Oh, okay. The gentleman. Okay, so 4 for now. If there's little time, we'll take a few more. Thank you.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Usman, and my father, Malam Ali Hayatu, is a retired journalist. In fact, he was a very deep investigative journalist. So I know he used to write about government. He was arrested by the Babangida government and almost arrested by the Abacha government. He owns work which were titled like Arrest Jonathan, Isobasanjo a Crook, and the rest. So I know, just like Rona, your movie yesterday revealed so many things that would maybe be seeming like victimizing the culprits of your investigation. So there is likelihood that you'll be witch hunted. And
Already been witch hunted.
Okay.
But I'm already a witch, so it doesn't matter.
So, in that regard, all investigative journalists, I believe, are like that. So do you feel there is any need for protection from either government or security agencies? And if there is need for that, do you work on getting such protection? And are there measures in place to provide such protections for you guys? Thank you very much.
Okay, so for me, protection is ad hoc. First of all, I'm not religious, but I have faith. So I believe protection comes from God. When we did, for instance, with coding, as you said, we had to leave, physically leave the whole country. I sent my mom to the US. My brothers went, I think, some resort in Togo with their families, you know, that kind of thing. But it's something, for instance, my family is used to. You know, we lost our breadwinner to journalism, so we already know how it goes in my house. It's an operation. Oh, this person is going to come out with this. Everybody knows what they are meant to do. You disappear, you lay low. So it's ad hoc. It's ad hoc protection. Now, in general, Fisayo has touched on one of the best ways I protect myself. I'm not out there. Some people will tell you I'm the most antisocial person. And in fact, the only reason I'm in this place is because of Miss Ellis. It's hard to see me anywhere out there because I just don't see the need. So what I do to protect myself is not just be out there all the time. And then finally, we know what we signed up for. I mean, there was one investigation where a kidnapper said, you know that this job, when you go out, you can either die or you can come back a millionaire. So me, I know the type of job I signed up for. And trust me, I tried to anchor for about 2 years. It didn't work. It didn't work. I was writing press release. I was going for nice events. I would catch my reflection in the mirror in a skirt suit and laugh at myself. So it's not as if I didn't try, my brother. I've tried. This is the only work that suits me. So I will just do it until I can't do it no more.
Thank you very much, Rona. Basit first.
Thank you so much, the panelists. This particular panel, I'm very passionate about it because it's related to my research, what I do. Now, I would love to briefly talk about, I have 2 questions. One, the issue that we actually raised. Most times, especially in security, there's that tendency to paint people who actually want to give an accurate understanding of what is happening as the problem. And I will give an example of the personality of Malam Hamid Sakiuda.
That's a quick example.
Quick example, Malam Hamid Sakiuda. I mean, I as an academic, to do accurate research on Boko Haram, I go to a limit, excellent. When we're coming from Kaduna, I showed you how I even blocked the WhatsApp account. I go to the Telegram account. I go to places where I know they put their first-hand information. And the reason I'm just information, necessary to give them airtime, but to give an understanding, and not just understanding, so to say that this is what is happening, and to also suggest solutions. So Amos Sekulda, for example, I mean, he has been severely criticized for his work, both from journalism, a circle, as well as the general audience. People criticize him. And then, when I look at his reporting, it's not just saying, he's trying to counter some of the wrong information out there, and it's not just saying that this is what is happening, it's also giving solutions. In April of this year, the Nigerian military actually brought out an information about killing some social media activists of Boko Haram. When I saw that information, it was false. I immediately tweeted about it that, see, if Nigeria does not even know if the difference between Jamaat al-Islam and Islamic are they fighting? So sometimes there's that tendency. I mean, I think out there, which would then make you a spokesperson. And then secondly, the question of objective reporting. I'm going to go to the global sphere. So when Donald Trump actually came on board, I mean, there was this era of fake news. Now, what would you say as journalists? How do you think media houses can actually be objective if they've actually become appendages to political parties? So if you look at America, for example.
You're crossing from question to third statement. Thank you, doctor. Who are you directing the question to? If there was a question. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My only just.
You would say 2 seconds.
Fistoye. One, after the Kemi issue, the scandal, and then she left, there is one aspect probably which has not been dealt with. You linked a bribery scandal to her exit because you are able now to find out there is issue of the certificate of NYSC, and that's probably why she was giving that money out. I wanted to find out what happened after that. The blackmail issue, the National Assembly, what again after that? Is it only Kemi? And then yes, Sayo. I didn't even know that I'm following and reading you all over, but this is the only time probably I'm seeing you for the first time. Yes, when I saw that story,